So after Trump made that speech at Fort Bragg where enlisted men were hooting and hollering in support of him, I got a lot of people in my comments who were real freaked out by it. A lot of people saying, why does everybody believe that the military is going to uphold their oath to the Constitution? Look at how the service members responded to Trump's speech at Fort Bragg. They're all on his side. The whole army is in his pocket. All of our service members are big Trumpers. Lots of people were like, oh, the military is going to betray us. The military is going to support Trump in an authoritarian takeover and a coup of the United States. And I totally understand why that speech was really alarming, because it did look like everybody was in support of Trump. And do you know why it looked like everybody there was in support of Trump? Because there's reporting out today that his people handpicked the members of the audience to make sure they were all Trump supporters. That was not a representative sample of folks who are at Fort Bragg. Autocrats are weak rulers, and so they have to manipulate the situation to make it look like they have more support than they actually do. It's the same way Trump always inflates the numbers of people who are at his rallies. He always exaggerates, then says his approval rating is something like 30, 40 points higher. He claimed a couple of weeks ago that his approval rating was 87%. It's all about manufacturing support for him because real support doesn't actually exist. It's all about exaggerating how powerful he is, how popular he is. So thank you to military.com for this piece that came out earlier today, June 11th. Fort Bragg soldiers who cheered Trump's political attacks while in uniform were checked for allegiance and appearance. So this was supposed to be a routine appearance from the president where he was trying to boost troop morale in anticipation of Saturday when he is co-opting the Army's 250th birthday to give himself a grotesque military dictator-style birthday parade. But instead what happened was a violation of the Hatch Act. I mean, you can go on Blue Sky. There's a number of former military leaders saying what Trump did at Fort Bragg was a violation of the Hatch Act. Instead, according to military.com, what actually unfolded on Tuesday at Fort Bragg bore little resemblance to the customary kind of speech that a president and defense secretary would give on a visit. Instead, Donald Trump unleashed a speech laced with partisan invective, goading jeers from a crowd of soldiers positioned behind his podium, blurred the long-standing and sacrosanct line between the military and partisan politics. As Trump viciously attacked his perceived political foes, he whipped up boos from the gathered troops directed at California leaders, including California Governor Gavin Newsom. He also took some swipes at Joe Biden during the speech and the press. The soldiers, quote, roared with laughter and applauded Trump's diatribe in a shocking and rare public display of troops taking part in naked political partisanship. Again, Hatch Act violation. So that's really scary to see our service members who are engaging in that kind of behavior, who appear to be, Trump sycophants, loyal to him beyond their loyalty to the American people and the Constitution. That's concerning. I understand why people were really freaked out with that. But I just want you to understand here that according to internal communications for the 82nd Airborne Division that military.com got their hands on, what you saw at Fort Bragg was a tightly orchestrated effort to curate the optics of Trump's visit. They hand-picked soldiers for the audience based specifically on their political leanings and physical appearance. There's a reason that almost all of the people in the audience are male, for example. One of the requirements for this stacked audience for Trump bluntly said, quote, no fat soldiers. And if soldiers have political views that are in opposition to the current administration and they don't want to be in the audience, then they need to speak with their leadership and get swapped out. Several officials declined to comment when asked about the extent to which troops were screened and whether soldiers displaying partisan cheers on television was a violation of long-standing Pentagon rules. They also declined to comment when asked if soldiers who objected to participating in the event, citing disagreements with the administration, would face discipline. One commander from Fort Bragg who spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation said, "This was shameful. I don't expect anything to come out of it, but I hope maybe we can learn from it long term." What I think is so remarkable about Bragg is that it's really a breakdown on the military side, said Risa Brooks, an expert of civil-military relations at Marquette University. It shows that it is possible that the military's professional ethics could fail. Let's not forget that when Biden gave a speech in 2022 and had exactly 2 Marines standing in the background, he got ripped to shreds by the Republicans. But no Republican has had any issue with what Trump did at Fort Bragg. When Biden had 2 Marines standing behind him, Republicans said Biden used the Marines as props and called it despicable conduct. But no word from Republicans about what Trump did yesterday. The article is quite long, and I encourage you to go read the whole thing. But toward the end, they say, despite the silence from military brass this week, meaning current serving military leadership, other experts, military observers, and former leaders all condemned the speech and the ensuing silence from current leadership. Retired Army Lieutenant Russell Lenore, best known for serving as the task force commander for the Hurricane Katrina relief, called the speech inappropriate. I never witnessed that shit like this in 37 years in uniform, he wrote. I just want to encourage you, it's very concerning that that happened, but please understand that that was not a representative sample of our service members. It is a shameful look for the leadership at Fort Bragg who allowed that to happen, how none of them had the spine to stand up. But we do know that there were plenty of service members who declined to participate in that rally. We do know that Trump handpicked supporters to make it look like everybody in the military is behind him. So again, I understand that this is a really concerning story. I understand that this does not feel good to think that there are people in the armed forces who would prioritize Trump, who are in the cult of MAGA, who would do whatever he says without considering their oath to the Constitution and the consequences for their fellow Americans and for democracy. I understand that I totally agree with you. That's concerning. But just remember that what you see is manufactured. What you see is a carefully crafted narrative. Sometimes it's not that carefully crafted. Sometimes it's pretty clumsy. But it is a manipulated scenario that is presented to you because Trump is desperate to manufacture more power than he has, to present that he is stronger and more popular than he actually is. So when we read stories like this, I just want to encourage y'all to take that into consideration when you are deciding how you're going to respond.